conference, we have Vicky Foxcroft, who is a Labour MP and the Minister for Disabled People. Well, she will be in 42 days' time. Vicky, you've heard what we've said. This isn't written down, but I'm going to say it. We look forward to welcoming you back, and maybe even your boss next year, when they can tell us that they've actually reversed the attacks on the disabled in this country that the Tories have inflicted. Thank you for not doing a dodgy Dave and cancelling your commitments at the last minute and staying on the train all the way to Liverpool. Vicky, the floor's yours.
Thank you very much for that, Jonathan, and no pressure whatsoever there. Me and Martin were talking actually just beforehand, and he said about being a little bit nervous, but I think that Martin made an absolutely fantastic speech and no reason whatsoever to be nervous at all. Now, if I can just start by saying how wonderful it is to join all of you in Liverpool here today. It's hard to think of a more appropriate setting for this conference. This great city is a birthplace of some fantastic disability activists like Baroness Jane Campbell. And just down the road, we have the Museum of Liverpool, which is doing great work, amplifying disabled people's lived experience through its Disability History Trail and online hub. And of course, Liverpool has always been at the heart of the trade union movement. As some of you may already know, before I became an MP, I had the honour of working for a trade union for over a decade. And it's probably best I don't say which one. It's been a bit hit and miss with the reaction in the past. I think Martin would be okay with which one it was. But I honestly can't understand why it's hit and miss among people. But one of the most impressive things, though, is Liverpool's track record on keeping the Tories out. No Tory-run council for 50 years. No Tory MPs since 1979. And the last Tory councillor defeated in 1994. But sadly for now, the rest of the country hasn't followed Liverpool's lead. 14 years of Tory government has done so much harm to our country and to disabled people. And this must end. And we now have the opportunity for real change. And by working together, I know that we can get the radical change we need. Conference, sadly, we all know firsthand the harm that Tory policies have done to disabled people. A welfare system that isn't working, the lack of meaningful support for disabled people to get into and stay on in work. And we've seen the endless pilots and programmes which deliver little and never stick around. Now, a lot happened yesterday, but I'm sure everyone here will have also followed yesterday's announcement by the EHRC regarding the DWP. They are investigating all of the Secretaries of State since 2021 and the DWP for breaking the law in relation to some benefit claimants. The government has serious questions to answer, and anyone might think they called the election to actually avoid doing so. But it is vital that the Equality and Human Rights Commission are allowed to do their job, and we will be pushing to ensure they can. It's crystal clear that the government's failure is locking disabled people out of work. Only last week, I raised the backlog in access to work applications with the Minister for Disabled People. I asked her how she can stand by and watch it increase month after month without taking any meaningful action to clear it. And her response: she bragged that the figure had risen yet again to over 36,700. This from a party which ironically claims it wants to get more disabled people into work. I also asked the Minister about the recent report on how the UK is implementing the UN Convention on the Rights of Disabled People. The committee found that insufficient progress had been made towards correcting, and I quote, the grave and systemic violations of disabled people's rights which have taken place since 2010. And the response this time, the government is challenging the UN's findings. The government is challenging the UN's findings. Well, here's a radical idea conference. Perhaps you should have just got on with putting things right rather than arguing the toss with some of the world's experts on disability. Now, sadly, I think we all know why the Tories are doing this. And at this general election, be in no doubt, the government will try to pit communities against each other. Young person against pensioner, worker against non-worker, and disabled person against non-disabled person. And this must end. And with this general election, we do have the chance to end this. Now, as we all know, a disability can be acquired by anyone at any time in their life. And I found this out for myself when I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis in 2019 and put on medication which suppresses my immune system. I want to make it clear that Labour will end the politics of division. We want a society where every disabled person feels included and is able to live as independently as possible. And do you know what? We've got the track record of doing this. In 1997, my first ever vote and my first memory of a Labour government, we established the Disability Rights Task Force. And this brought together disability organisations, trade unions and representatives from the public and private sectors to look at how we could deliver on our pledge to secure enforceable civil rights for disabled people. The Disability Rights Commission followed and eventually became the Equality and Human Rights Commission. In 2000, we passed regulations that imposed a range of accessibility requirements on public service vehicles. In 2001, we made it illegal to discriminate against disabled pupils and college students. In 2003, we made it unlawful to discriminate against disabled people in the workplace. In 2005, we brought in the Mental Capacity Act. In 2006, the First Equality Act. Sorry if this list is getting rather long, but we really did do a lot. Now, alongside these key pieces of legislation, we fixed NHS waiting times. When we took office, the average wait was 18 months. When we left, it was 18 weeks. We lifted almost 2 million children and pensioners out of poverty. We delivered on independent living, including direct payments. We expanded access to work. And in 2009, the last Labour government ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of Disabled People. Never say Labour doesn't deliver in power. And never, ever forget what happened with 14 years of Tory rule. So with a general election scheduled for the 4th of July, I don't know if anybody saw the Rishi announcement. There's a lot of different things that we could say, but I want to say to Rishi, we do have a plan. We will break down the barriers so that disabled people have exactly the same rights to get into and get on in work as non-disabled people. Ashamedly, the UK disability employment gap stands at just under 30%. 4.4 million disabled people are economically inactive. 43% of the disabled working age population. And if we win the next election, I assure you, we will act to close the employment gap. Our new deal for working people, developed by Angela Rayner and her team in partnership with trade unions, is a fantastic starting point. Because we all know working together is how we get things done and it's how we get things right. The new deal will hugely benefit disabled people and those with long-term health conditions. It will make flexible working the default from day one, with employers required to accommodate requests as far as is reasonable. It will strengthen our trade unions. It will ensure sufficient time and facilities for all trade union reps so that they have the capacity to represent workers, to negotiate with employers and to train. And to improve things even more, we will legislate for statutory rights for union equality reps so they will be on an equal footing with health and safety reps and shop stewards. And as part of our aim to ensure a secure and safe working environment for everyone, we will review health and safety guidance to properly support people with mental health conditions. And we will strengthen statutory sick pay, making it available to all workers, including the low paid. And on top of this strong foundation, we will act to close the disability pay gap, beginning by introducing mandatory reporting for firms with over 250 employees. Labour's Race Equality Act will enshrine in law the full right to equal pay for disabled people alongside Black, Asian and ethnic minority people. We will reform job centres so that they have a new focus on tackling the barriers to good employment, devolving new powers over employment support and changing their duties to require collaboration with other agencies, including the NHS. And remember those ever-climbing access to work numbers that I mentioned earlier? Well, we will overhaul the system so that disabled people know what equipment, adaptations or personal support they'll get before they start work, giving them the confidence to take the plunge. And our Into-Work guarantee will introduce changes to incapacity benefits to support disabled people and those with ill health who are currently not required to seek work by the benefits system to try employment without fear of losing their income or having to be reassessed if it doesn't work out. Trade union reps, like many of you here today, often play a crucial role in helping employees to get reasonable adjustments. And so Labour will take action to make it simpler to secure reasonable adjustments in a timely manner, including when changing jobs or when circumstances change. And the Disability Confidence Scheme, we all know, is not working. And we will look at this in detail and make sure we have an outcomes-driven scheme which works both for employers and employees. And more widely, we will tackle the barriers in the NHS to ensure that people are getting the treatment they need. On waiting lists, we will get patients treated on time by delivering 40,000 more weekend and evening appointments each week, paid for by cracking down on tax dodgers. Sure. I reckon that's deserving of a little clap. We've got to tackle those that are just dodging the system. But we'll also provide specialist mental health support in every school and walking access to services for young people in every community, tackling one of the key drivers of economic inactivity before it takes hold, paid for by ending tax breaks for private schools. But we also know that the barriers don't begin and end in the workplace. Our whole society needs to change. And this is why I'm working with colleagues across the Shadow Cabinet to ensure disabled people are at the heart of all of our policy making. For example, the next Labour government will transform social care that will lead to a world-class national care service underpinned by the principles of Home First, national standards enforced by a strengthened regulator. We have plans for more accessible housing and will work with disabled people's organisations to ensure new builds are accessible and adaptable. And on transport, we are committed to creating a safe, integrated, accessible and affordable transport system fit for the century ahead. And I can assure you that that is just the very start. As I said before, the last Labour government signed up to the UNCRPD. The Tories have been taken to task for breaching their convention obligations. A Labour government will restore and strengthen disabled people's rights, and co-production with disabled people is key to delivering this. And I can assure you that this will be at the heart of everything that we do. That's why it's always been so important to me that I hear directly from disabled people and those who work with and support them. And conference, this will not all be delivered if we don't get that Labour government. We absolutely cannot take anything for granted, as much as we might feel that the Tories are not doing a good job, and why would anybody ever vote for them again? But I just want to share a secret that I might have shared with some of you before, and some of you might not have heard this before. But I don't want to be the shadow minister for disabled people. You can boo me if you want. I want to be the minister for disabled people. But I really need your help to help me remove the shadow from my title. We need you to help us deliver that Labour government where every single minister will be a minister for disabled people. We have that opportunity on July the 4th. We have the chance to vote for change, the chance to vote for hope. I will do everything that I can to ensure that we deliver this. And working together, I believe that we can. So I hope that you will join me in ensuring that this time next year, I can speak at your conference and finally introduce myself as the Minister for Disabled People and Keir Starmer as our Prime Minister. Thank you, conference.